All right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back on Charlton's immense 1-0 win against Stoke. And I think of all the results recently, just so important. And I think the platform that gives us now, the buffer,
Yeah, our
our,
favourite
our,
word.
our good old buffer, has been increased again. But yeah, I thought what a performance, what a game. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like from the start, I thought we played a sort of set up to really sort of take the game. I think we pressed really hard today. I think we showed again that when we play players in their positions, the wing back system all of a sudden is looking like it's back on point in
Mm,
terms of
mm,
what Jones was looking for in terms of that system. When you've got the right players in the right positions. We can see why at the start of the season we went, game one winning streaks. We weren't conceding goals. All of a sudden, we've gone from like looking like we were shipping goals for fun to 3 clean sheets in a row, and that's down to the fact that we are like all of a sudden those players that have come in, especially the wing backs, Chambers and Clark, have transformed the way we can bring the defence
mm.
back to where it was. I think.
Well, I think that's the frustrating thing when I look at that is I couldn't agree more. I think that has been the most transformative thing of recent weeks is seeing players play in their actual positions. And I think the only thing that's kind of disappointing looking back, and I'm sure a lesson kind of learnt by the club, is the severe lack of depth we went into that first half of the season there. And the fact we were at that left wing back role playing likes of TC, Ono Hernandez,
Hernandez, who was like an injury-prone player, that we knew was probably gonna not really be able to cut it. Russilon.
Ah, still my favourite one of the season. But yeah, no, I think it was brilliant. And the way we came out today just pushed them right back into their shell. I have to admit, when you kind of go into it, having gone in at half time, not 1-0 up, I just couldn't believe it because the amount of chances we had, and we'll go into a little bit more detail. But
I think that's the other thing as well. Is like even from the QPR, Leicester was tough to sort of analyse in a way because we had an extra man. So, but the QPR game, we've created a hell of a lot of chances, and then again today we've created a lot of chances. So we've gone back to being solid at the back, but also now creating chances. So that's the recipe to actually start pushing on and getting results.
well, yeah, and I'd argue these last three performances, arguably, we're seeing a better side of what actually we saw at the beginning of the season. Because at the beginning of the season, we were finding it was just taking those one odd chances. Creativity was a big issue, but we were so defensively solid. Games were just on that kind of fine knife edge. Whereas I feel like in these last few games, and don't get me wrong, it depends on who you're coming up against, how they're performing as well. But I do feel like creativity does seem to. I don't think it's from 0 to 90 at the moment. I think we go through spells, and if you look on the pessimistic side, you do look at it and say, against QPR and also against Stoke today, we were so nearly punished for not taking our chances. And in the Championship, your only worry in that is there was, even with Stoke, who I thought personally were incredibly poor today, there is that danger that they could just get that goal. Sorba Thomas could
They've
get a
got
goal out
class
of nothing.
sort of individuals, haven't
Yeah,
they, that could just create a bit of
yeah.
magic. And Raksaki, to be fair, came very close, and we'll obviously talk about it. But he's another sort of player they had that could just get a goal from nowhere. So there was always a danger. And you're right. I think the one way that we will push on as a club going forwards eventually will be being more clinical, having a few more individuals with a bit more quality, and they will start to transform things. But
And experienced heads. I
yeah,
think what we've seen is obviously looking at that starting lineup. The only change coming in is a lovely one to see on the starting lineup again. One that I wasn't sure we'd see this season. Matty Godden coming in for Kelman. I don't think it was his greatest game, but once again, I just think those experienced heads, those people who've been there, the people who've done that, and now when we were talking about kind of the experience in there, or lack of experience, I suppose you had like Corey Anderson's, Keenan Goffwalk kind of coming into the squad. You had TC starting. There was a lot of inexperience in the Championship, and now you're looking at a game today where you've got Cody, Doherty, Godden, Dykes, Bell. It's littered with experience now, and I think for me at this point of the season, that is so integral. And we've discussed about leadership and quality, and
yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about the leadership and the experience being the thing that drags you through. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing.
I earmarked as well like the two wing backs, but actually Cody's worth a mention. Since he's come in, we haven't conceded a goal. And to be fair, he has been quite pivotal in that because we spoke last week about how he was able to sort of rotate with the defence, but also what he does, he gives license to the wing backs to get up further because he sort of sits in that hole. So he has been really, really a massive improvement on the overall sort of structure of the team. And also, he's just like you said, experienced, and the experienced players. Dykes is another one that's played so many games in the Championship, but even tonight, like Dykes getting flick-ons. I think he got a flick-on for the goal.
Yeah, he did.
And again, he just puts himself about, and he knows how to sort of play in that league.
And we've discussed so many times about players that, do you know what? When I watch Dyke sometimes, I do think he's not the most technically gifted footballer, and he's not going to go and get you 20 goals a season. But my God, the one thing we said is we were so severely lacking over that period of bad performances, players who are just willing to leave everything on the pitch. And the one thing he does is that he's also so good at flick-ons, physical battles, playing the dirty game. And I think the more he plays with other strikers and other players in that team, the amount of chances he'll also create off the back of that are really important. Because I think there was opportunities, and I think looking at the players around him today, Carey and Godden, I thought Godden looked rusty. But with Carey, I thought he was a little bit off with his positioning. And I think once we get a clicking nature of whether it's Kelman with Dykes, Leeburn with Dykes, Carey getting a bit more into form again, I think he will just bring even more to the team, and I think
100%.
he's been a brilliant signing.
I think a lot of credit has to go to the club actually over the January sort of window. I think the players that have been brought in we can see it. Like since the window, we've really picked it up, and I think they've been crucial to that.
And also, can we say, and I think there's got to be respect on that side, because players who came with pretty heavy criticism by fans. I think when you look over it, I've been quite impressed with the players we got in. Chambers, a bit of an unknown quantity, but a position we definitely needed to cover. Cody, a lot of people were saying that's not the right kind of move. Dykes, he doesn't score goals. And actually, we're seeing that, do you know what, sometimes there's a reason why the fans aren't the ones signing the players.
It's true, though. It's true. We all think we're experts, but at the end of the day, like, Nathan Jones is the one that's there every day, and he knows what he needs to improve that squad. And we've seen that's exactly what's happened. He's brought a lot more quality in. And it's
freshening things up as well.
100%. And we needed it because we were relying on players like the likes of Leeburn, Campbell, players that we know have quality, but they're not necessarily ones that you want to be relying on in those moments where you're under the cosh. And also bringing even players like Doherty, who've been out of the team, all of a sudden he's come back in and transformed himself and brought that sort of spike back that we've desperately needed. Today was another example of it. He was so good.
Yeah, and Doherty, he's someone we're going to go on to a little bit more later on. No spoilers, but I think with him as well, he's someone that every Charlton fan, I think deep down knows he's got his heart and soul on the line every single time he puts that that shirt on. And we're starting to see how important that is. Once again, we discussed it last week, how important that is at this stage of the season.
100%.
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant. Well, let's go into that first half then. So it was very much kind of fire out the traps. There was a lot of pressure straight away, and I thought it was really impressive. A lot of times this season we see moments in games, and I think we've started quite a few games, especially of late, on a little bit of the slower side.
Yeah.
And to take it to them straight away, clearly a team who, to me, looked a little bit devoid of confidence and quite a few injuries as well.
I think they were there to be got out. I think they're not in good form. I think the players, I think they got a few injuries, and I think even players like Thomas, for example, we saw again tonight actually that he's got the quality, but he was a little bit off, wasn't he? He's not quite.
He had moments.
He had little spells, which he will have, but generally, like, we knew they were there to be got at. So I think it seemed as if we were trying to press quite high. We were trying to put the pressure on early and get up the pitch, which we did manage to do. And obviously, I think quite a few of our early chances came through corners, crosses, that sort of thing.
Which is lovely to see, because I think it's something we know we are so good at as a side. But I think we went over a little bit of a period where when Bree first came in, it became a very integral part of what we did. And then we just seemed to get lost on what we were doing. Half of that was because Bree couldn't lost the ability to kick a ball about 4 games into his Charlton career. But then the next part of that was, I think we were just struggling to actually take advantage of whether it was the ball in, whether it was making the right decisions, the overlaps we were really struggling with. And I thought everything we saw in that first part was what we were so good at and so important.
It's interesting because you bring up Bree, and obviously, like, he started so quickly or when he first came in, and I remember we were thinking, like, we've got an absolute wizard here. He's just like putting it on a sixpence.
I think the conversation was, how are we going to try and how are we going to try and sign this boy in January?
Obviously, we know what happened in the end. Like, he sort of tailored off massively, but one thing I will say, I know Carey didn't have his greatest game, but he was on the crosses for the corners. He put a few really nice balls in from the corners,
Yeah.
and he actually has got a bit of quality when it comes to whipping it in. And then you've also got Chambers, who takes them from the other side, and both of them, to be fair, are putting in decent crosses at the moment. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think these are in the right order. It's always difficult tonight because we record the game without really being able to look back on the highlights properly. But first chance of all was whipped ball in. Clark with the header from a corner, rattled the bottom of the crossbar.
unlucky.
Very unlucky. I don't think there's anything more you can do, but it set a tone. It got the crowd up.
That was about 6 minutes in, I think.
Yeah, it was very early on. The next one kind of moving in from there, a lovely ball over the top by Ramsey, and we seem to be getting a lot of joy. I think Stoke, one of the things they really struggled with was those balls over the top, and I think that's something we are... I mean, you've only got to look at our stats. I have to put them together for every video when I'm editing, and we have a atrociously low accuracy of passes because I think we long ball it so often.
Yeah, we're pinging.
And the amount of kind of passes we have as a team is quite low. But when there's teams who struggle against that, that's where we're in our element. And I thought the movement from Dykes in regards to that was really good. Not much more he could do with it. I know there was kind of...
He did quite well, even just to sort of loop it over, and they defended it well, to be fair. They nearly knocked each other out.
I was going to say, I had this moment of like it being some kind of comedy scene where they knocked each other out and it went in the back of the net. But once again, it just it kept applying that pressure, and it felt like it was only a matter of time, and they were in that kind of crumble territory.
Yeah.
We then had Kane Ramsey header, which I believe was from Harry Clark, cross in.
Yeah.
One thing I will say about him as well, and I think he's someone that I've been so impressed with since he's come to us. He's got a hell of a cross on him.
He really
He's
has,
a lot more
actually,
technically gifted than I thought, because I thought we were going to be looking at... I think one of the negatives we had towards Bree was that he had that technical ability, but defensively he was a bit weak. He was
quite
a bit
slow as well.
Yeah, quite slow. And I think with Clark, he's a little bit quicker. He's very strong.
Physical, yeah.
And don't get me wrong, look, he's not the absolute most technically gifted player, but he knows how to whip a ball in. And that's, I think, something we've noticed how much. Now we're having those two wing-backs who can cross the ball.
You know, the other thing I've noticed with Clark as well, he's not afraid to get the ball and sprint up the pitch. So if he sees a bit of space, and he sort of... that tends to happen with the wing-backs, is that one ball will get pinged out to him, he'll have a bit of space to run into. And he will charge down that line and really go into the space, which Bree didn't do. He was much more sort of head up and try and pass the ball in.
Well, he kind of relied on, I think, the passing in a triangle to give him the space to then hit the ball in. And as you say, I think Clark's got that little bit more one-directional kind of push on. If there's space, I'll go into
it. Which is exciting to watch, actually, because
Mm.
it's actually what we desperately needed, is a few players just to bring the ball up the pitch. So,
Yeah, well, you had that chance. It was a bit of a bit chance. He got the head on it.
Yes.
It would take a hell of a header to actually kind of get the goal there. Now, I think from there, then the ball was crossed into probably what was the best chance, and that was the Lloyd Jones.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite believe. I got out of my seat and kind of semi-celebrated.
Yeah.
He never hit the net.
It's sort of come into him at the back stick, hasn't it? And he's sort of got his foot on it, but he's just not quite been able to hook it enough to get it in. But yeah, he should have probably tucked it, I would say. That's probably a bit of a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
It's a centre-back. That's the only thing you can give him, isn't it?
No.
If you try.
It's stretching. And I think what we realised... Yeah, he was stretching. He was just not enough.
Yeah.
But I think what we were seeing there was this build-up. But we know all season the problem we have is we play in spits and spurts in games, and it felt like similar to the QPR game where, look, if we don't take our chance, then potentially we start to lose momentum. And as much as Stoke didn't really, to me, seem like they were going to offer much, and they're not in great form, they have got some good players on the pitch. They've got just that moment that could hurt you.
Yeah.
And we very, very nearly saw that with a player we know very well. And I think where all of their problems were being caused really was that Raksaki and Lawal, I think it is, their wing back. And I think with him, those two were causing problems, and especially Lawal, for me, had Chambers' number a little bit. I think Chambers, he's not blessed with pace.
What I like about Chambers, he does fly in and he does put his body in.
I like him. I think he's been brilliant.
He had some challenges today where he sort of put his whole body through it, and I enjoy watching that. But you're right, he's not the quickest, and when you come up against someone like Lawal, who was rapid,
he reminded me a little bit like that Adama Traore, like build his way. He's quite stocky, and it was like when he had one where he just went around the outside, you thought, Christ, it was like a couple of steps, and he was
it's concerned.
well far gone.
But yeah, no, I think obviously Raksaki we know how dangerous he is. Obviously, Eddis didn't know us, and
Well, it's those moments, I think, with Stoke where that was an eye-opener to the fact that we didn't take our chances, and it took one bit of quality where they played a little passage of play, opened us up. I thought some pretty poor defending on tracking players, and Raksaki was in, and I was just waiting.
the net.
Yeah, and I thought really poor from Raksaki. I think if he does anything but what he did, he pretty much
You know what? I
put the ball
think
in the net.
as he went to hit it, he was sort of falling back, so that's why it sort of lifted.
I think Lloyd Jones might have got a
Got a little
little
bit on
nick
him.
on him. It reminded me a little bit of the
Kone.
Kone against in the playoff semi-finals. I think it was Gillespie who got
Yeah.
the little nudge on him just
They're
before he
clever from
shot.
defenders when they
Yeah.
do manage to get a bit of contact, because I think it just puts them off a little bit. And he should have scored. Let's be honest, he should have from where he was, but obviously he's crashed it onto the crossbar. And that, like you said, that was a big wake up call in terms of like, okay, we're on top here, but we can easily get sliced open with a bit of quality, which is what.
And it wasn't far after that we lost the ball in the midfield. I think it was Doc who lost the ball, and we were cut open very, very quickly. Raksaki coming up 1-on-1 against Amari Bell. I thought Amari Bell defended it really well because I think if he had a cut inside, it made it very difficult for Kaminsky. He took him to a side that made it easier for Kaminsky to kind of judge where he's going to go, and he blazed it over the bar. So I think there are two chances, but they were two chances to me that thought, okay, maybe we've lost that initial momentum and this game's kind of back on. And as much as I still feel like we were the better team, it definitely was some warning signs. And I think the Championship is littered
the league, isn't it? That is
yeah.
the league. Whoever you come up against, whatever team, even if you're playing teams down the bottom, they all have a few players that are dangerous that can catch you out. And I think that's obviously where Raksaki and sort of Thomas and players like that were dangerous for Stoke tonight. But they were the moments really that we had to be really switched on.
And I thought in that first half as well, just kind of a special mention to Lloyd Jones. I thought the way he defended Cisse, and he got him so rattled. And I thought defensively, actually, it wasn't just Jones, albeit he was absolutely immense, but I thought Ramsey did very well against him as well, and they were just playing him perfectly. And I think he was another player who potentially did have some danger in him. Looked like he had quite a quick turn on him, a bit of a turn of pace, and we just didn't allow any of that creativity. We kind of stifled it quite quickly.
We were quick on them, weren't they? When they sort of got the ball into feet, I think Jones, like you're right, Ramsey were really tight up on them, and it made it difficult for them to really like progress once they got the ball to their feet. So we defended really well today.
No, we did definitely. And then there, I suppose that kind of comes into moving into that second half. I thought the game started a little bit more evenly. It felt like Stoke had probably had kind of
a bit of a
Mark Robbins in there kind of saying, what the hell are you doing out there? And it felt like they came out, albeit once again, I thought we were doing what we do really, really well in regards to very limited chances. And I think you take that whole second half, I can't really tell you many clear-cut chances. I think some of that was down to some very poor work from the Stoke attackers. I thought Sorba Thomas broke down that side a few times and whipped in some
dangerous.
They were lethal, and they were take the whole team out. And what I can't understand is the first time, okay, kind of understand it. When you know he's kind of on that, and I think he had at least 2, maybe 3. It was the same outcome.
I think every time he was trying to nudge the ball past. I think he might have been up against Chambers that side. I can't remember.
Clark was there.
Nudge it past him and then just drill it as hard as he can across the box. But like, I think Steve Brown on the comms actually, he mentioned like Raksaki had one where if he had just actually run in, he probably was on the end of it. But that was one criticism of Raksaki probably in general, is that he's not exactly the most sort of lively when it comes to not having the ball. So if they had some more instinctive strikers on the pitch, you never know, we could have been in trouble there. So there was always, and that's where we go back to the fact that there's always that danger. But Stoke definitely looked a bit more lively in that.
They looked a bit more lively, but I still think if you take all the big chances of that second half, they were still all down to us. And I think, once again, difficult in regards to order. But Jones had another one from a corner, and he ended up over the advertisement board. I don't think it was quite as clear cut as the first one, but definitely seemed.
He still caught it, to be fair, but his side name, wasn't it?
We had Matty Godden with a deflected shot, which
great effort, to be fair.
It was, and it felt a little. So I felt Matty Godden the whole game felt a bit rusty, a bit off it, and that's understandable. He's had a whole season out. It's a very big injury, and it's going to take time for him to kind of come back. But I think we see glimpses of what he was about, and it really reminds. it really reminded me of last year and just those moments and that one moment you need in a game.
Well, the semi-final, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wickham.
it was, and I think you saw that throughout the whole of last season. He's not necessarily a player who will be in the whole 90,
Mm.
but in those moments you need him, he's essential. And I felt that was a little bit of a taster of what he can still bring the team
Yeah,
and why he's
it
so
was
important.
like throughout the whole time he was on the pitch, that was the one big chance he got. And
Mm,
actually, without that little nick from the defender, that's going on target
mm,
and arguably is going to really cause some problems.
mm,
So, yeah, he only needs that one chance in a game to really sort of be lethal.
mhm.
And that was his big chance.
Yep, yeah, we had that one. Then move on to probably one of the more game-changing kind of moments of the game. So TC coming onto the pitch.
Mm.
He pretty quickly kind of did what he does best, which was that danger of running at players, and he had that beautiful chance where he ran him, cut into his kind of classic where he scored from not long ago and caught a long range shot. I don't think it ever challenged the keeper too much, but definitely down to the side, and you never quite
It
know.
was
But
almost a carbon copy of his little effort. He had, well, the goal he scored against Derby, where he cut inside, and he got a good amount of power on it. I think it was probably not quite as far into the corner this time round, so that's probably why the keeper managed to save it. But that was probably a wake up call for their defence in terms of this guy's got a bit of danger about him. Yeah,
When it was, and I think he did. He had a really good influence on the game. He was trying. I thought at times he was kind of the way they were defending. Not long after that, he was maybe struggling as to what the right decision was, but he was in the game. He was a live wire, and that's
yeah,
what we needed. Because I felt up to that point, it definitely felt like our legs were starting to go a bit, and I think it really reminded me of how QPR took the end of the
well,
of that game.
it,
It kind of, I don't think Stoke ever got on top of it, but it definitely felt like we were just fatiguing a bit, and
I
it
think
needed.
I think you could argue both sides looked that way a little bit. I think the conditions didn't help. It was a pretty miserable
Mhm.
day, wasn't it? Like the pitch was probably getting a bit heavy towards the end. But one thing I will say is it is noticeable at the end of the games when teams are tiring, and that's where players like Campbell coming on are massive because they're fresh legs and they really do change the game.
Well, and I think when we're talking about his development this season, it's almost the perfect role for him to not get too much stick because he is coming on, and naturally, just that raw pace is going to give him a bit more time to kind of adapt to this league,
Yeah.
and his dangerous side is going to be more dangerous. And I think actually, this is probably what we should have been seeing maybe a little bit earlier, and that fact of having to shoehorn him into the position he wasn't was really crushing his confidence.
Yeah.
Now he looks like he's coming on as a much more confident player, and he's a winger, so never consistent all the time,
Yeah.
but definitely looks more dangerous from that bench.
100%. I just think he brings that real danger, that quickness, and that's why probably we got a bit frustrated with him against QPR because we felt like actually he could have brought more to that game. Tonight we saw the absolute opposite. He definitely changed that game.
Definitely, and that moves on to my favourite moment of the night. So we had the Kaminsky goal kick, booted up long, Dykes winning a brilliant flick on, and I don't know what you thought about it, but I've watched it back quite a few times now. And I think one of the most understated parts of that goal, TC's movement is brilliant.
Yeah.
It is such a striker's move. He kind of cuts in and then just backs off and goes. And I still can't quite work out what the defender was doing. He kind of tripped. But I think some of that does come down to the movement from TC.
Yeah, 100%.
And it wasn't just like, it's now gone through, I'm going to run onto it. It was a purposeful run from TC. And I think that's where a side of his game we definitely want to see more sometimes of, because it was a real, as I say, it was a real quality moment of kind of movement. And then he took his first touch.
It's a bit of a trampoline touch, wasn't it?
I thought if he was not as rapid as he is, he would have completely and utterly buggered that.
Yeah.
He then took his touch around the keeper, which I thought was equally as janky. It was a strange. Looking back, you can be like, it was quite composed to take it around the keeper, but I felt it was anything but in the moment. It was.
Do we care though?
No, of course we don't. And when he until the ball hit the back of the net, I didn't feel confident, which I think tells you that whole kind of passage of play. But sensational, and I thought that the difference he was making. But that one moment was so integral in it because it felt like up to that point, we've gone through all the chances and it just felt like one of those days again.
Yeah.
And there's only so many of them you can have. You have to, even on a day where things aren't quite going your way and you're missing chances, there has to be that one moment, and that was it. And well played.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair to Campbell as well, you're right, his movement made that goal. And I
That was
think,
my most impressive bit.
yeah, his movement made the goal, but also he was brought on for Godden, so he was brought on at a more of a striker sort of role.
Mm.
And I think actually you start to see where he could be quite effective in that role. He's played there before, but because he's able to play off the last man, he's got that raw pace, and that's what ultimately got him in behind. And then the raw pace again, bad, not a great touch, but that just means that he's able to make up for it and tucking it away. And you're right. Is we needed that one big chance just to get that goal, and I felt like once we scored, I thought we would go on and win. So once we tucked that away, especially at the time that it went in as well,
I felt we did, and I felt we actually played it out really well.
we did.
I thought we were winning, and once again we've gone back to now wanting every ball, wanting every header, and I feel like we massively lost that at one point where we were backing out of challenges, we were losing the balls in the midfield, and as much as what that gave as well was that final boost of here we go, we've now got to dig our heels in, and you saw it gave everyone that little burst of energy. Dykes, he didn't look like he had anything left in by the end, was sprinting back. Everyone just had that little burst, and even our midfield up to that point I felt were looking very leggy. You just got a bit of an extra boost.
Yeah.
And obviously Carey coming off, Coventry coming on, and we battened up the hatches. And there's not many teams who are going to break that down because we've got about 20 centre-backs on the pitch because we start with them, and we've got holding mids galore. So if we are structured, we are rigid, it's going to take something special, or Kane Ramsey falling over again, which put the fear of God. I don't know what he's... I don't know if he's been practicing, his ice skating or something recently. He's been down Gillingham or whatever, but
there's always that danger
the
of
one moment
I know. There's always that one bit of sort of in any game you've got that sort of error in there. But luckily, like you said, we rode it out really well, and actually I thought we managed the game well once we scored.
And that's probably something we missed off the first half. Kaminsky nearly tried his best as well.
Oh yeah.
That was
a left-footed clearance, wasn't it? He sort of blamed the bobble, but I'm not quite sure. I think it was a poor clearance.
And guys' moments and that moment.
Yeah, it was. Most keepers have got him, to be fair, but let's be honest, he's got the most clean sheets in the league. So he might even have those clangers in his locker, but he's still keeping goals out. So
no, definitely. And as I say, we rode that game out brilliantly. And when that final whistle went, as I say, the magnitude and how huge that is for our season, and these last 3 games have been transformative. And we discussed going into these 4 games how important it was to get performances. Probably most importantly the performances, but points would be an incredible bonus that were desperately needed. And to see both sides of that has been so, as I say, transforming of our season. And seeing Nathan Jones at the end telling the Stoke fans to F off was just... It was the creme de la creme of that performance.
I think there was quite a few people that were just... obviously, we were over the moon that we've got a result, but we're actually over the moon for him because he's taken a lot of shellacking from those fans.
Yeah.
And so he definitely enjoyed it. I think I listened to his little interview afterwards, and he said he needed to get down the tunnel pretty quickly because his emotions were running pretty high. We know it's a man to run this off emotions.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
so much.
Yeah, but beautiful. And you're right. The games, we knew after the Leicester game, we had those 3 crucial games at home. QPR... I'd say like we edged it and like a bit unlucky not to get 3 there.
I think it's a prime example of us not taking our chance
100%.
in the moment, because one thing Charlton at the moment,
today could have been
if we go 1-0 up, or God forbid we get 2 goals in the game, then realistically I feel confident again. There's not many teams who are then going to come at us and break us down to that extent of we're at least getting a point. But I feel if this is the team that, for example, had turned up at Blackburn when we were 2-0 up, I don't think what happens there.
But that's where there's been a mentality shift a bit. And like I said, it's probably a combination of the performances have gone up again, but also the personnel that have come in have made a huge difference to the actual overall sort of system that we're able to play now. And I think today again was a good example of us putting in a massive performance, but also just taking one chance, which we've struggled to do throughout the season. But we're starting to see that creep back in.
Oh, what we did to see all of our greatest successes at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
With a little bit more flair. I do still
we built ourselves off of a really solid defence, which was what was our trademark in a way, and then that all sort of tailored off.
Do you think these performances give the faith back towards, because I know a lot of people were, and I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but that system being what a lot of people saw as the issue and the reason why we were struggling. What I personally do think, and it'd be interesting to see your take on it, is I think the last few performances and actually adding some different personnel in there shows that I still think it is a system that can work, especially for a team who doesn't have the highest budget in the league, is going to be running on slightly different kind of squads as to others who are pumping 50, 60 million a summer into things.
Yeah.
I think you can see with adding in now more of, like, for example, at left wing back, I'm not sure. I think Chambers is brilliant. I think he'll do a brilliant job this season. I think there's still a little bit more of a calibre of a bit more physical, a bit more pace, but you can kind of see how that system can start dropping back in with some slight better quality, a slightly more technically gifted centre mid. Doherty, brilliant at the moment, but a bit of a Doherty with a bit more ability.
Yeah. The middle of the park's definitely, I thought we might bring in another centre mid in January. We haven't, and I think we've got enough there to just about be all right. But that is somewhere we need to improve. But that comes with time, and we've said this loads of times. But I don't think the system was ever fully the issue. I was frustrated that he wasn't adapting the system to the players he had available. That was my big problem. But now we got those players back, and we're able to play the players where they should be playing. You're seeing how it's effective, and that's what Jones knows is possible if we have the right players for it.
And maybe his criticism in those moments wasn't the system, but it was using the system at a certain point and showing adaptability when stuff is going against you a little bit. The other one I think was just an interesting talking point before we kind of move on from the game. What's your feelings at the moment towards substitutes? Because I found myself in this game, but also the QPR game, a little bit frustrated at how little and late some of the subs coming on, especially in the centre of the pitch. I feel Cody is kind of just about coming back into fitness. His legs do go, and he is at the ancient age of 32.
Did he play the whole game today? I think he did. I don't think he got subbed.
Yeah, no, he did. And so and Doherty as well, because I don't think Doherty's played loads of game time, and I feel both of them became quite leggy in both games, but there was no desire to maybe switch that up or change it when you have got players like Rankin Costello we've discussed. We've got players like Coventry who obviously came in once the goal had gone in. I did find myself a little bit frustrated at the lack of change when it felt like Stoke had made the changes and that was starting to give them a bit more impetus and a bit more.
They made a lot of changes.
Yeah, and but it felt like the freshening up was starting to open the game back up in not necessarily their favour as in they were dominating us, but I just feel with Jones sometimes, especially of late, that I do understand both arguments maybe, but I feel like there's
probably some times where like I was surprised Doherty was on as long as he did because he worked his balls off today. But maybe that he wanted to keep him because he was just on it today and he was really like putting himself about. And actually, it's dangerous in a way in those sort of positions where like the Cody position, the defensive mid, or the Terrier sort of position, swapping someone in like Coventry who actually ended up coming on for Carey. That was probably just to shore it up and get a bit more energy in there. We know you can tackle that sort of thing, so break the play up. But when you're bringing somebody on in that position, they've got to be right on it straight away because they're crucial sort of harrying roles. So maybe that's partly it, that he feels like if we're playing well, why change it? But fitness can be an issue, especially towards the end of the game if you're getting overrun. Yeah.
I just feel, I'm not necessarily saying the first sign of us looking a bit tired. I just think we go quite long periods of looking leggy when there is options there to maybe freshen it up. And I do understand that you switch someone else in, they've got to get up to the speed of the game.
That's
but,
maybe it's a tricky one.
I mean, it's a conversation, definitely. It's a bit of a strange one sometimes.
Is, but we can't at the end of the day we can't really criticise his subs because obviously he brought TC on and scored.
No. And when it works, it works. It can just be quite frustrating. And there can be a bit of an opinion of manager to manager, kind of fan to fan. Because I remember, it reminds me of Gareth Southgate, England, where I'd be screaming at the TV in the 85th minute and he'd bring on like the most electric subs on like the 92nd minute. And you're like, why wasn't that 20 minutes?
I'm pretty sure like Leeds fans get frustrated with fuck because he doesn't make sub till like 70 minutes or whatever. But
clockwork.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into the individual performances, and I think it's a day where I think there was a few players who maybe weren't on their A game. I don't think we're going to go into any direct negatives because I don't think it was the kind of performance that warrants it. I think probably on that side, if we were, Godden is one that we discussed. I think the rustiness was definitely apparent in there. Carey, I thought, was brilliant when he was crossing the ball in, but I was a little bit disappointed with some of his positioning at times. He doesn't quite feel on that confidence of picking the ball up.
I was just
running
about to say
there
that's
was
his
kind of-
strength, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like that real sort of getting the ball and sort of running into the space. You didn't really see too much of that today.
no,
I think the conditions were quite tough today, but
yeah.
I think again the type of game. I think I'd say Stoke probably would have definitely had more of the ball. So it's then when we have the ball, how can we utilise it? And actually, we were playing it quite a lot down the left and right and stuff.
And what we required from him, especially at big points, was the crossing, and he was
He was on it.
90% of
Yeah,
the
he was.
crosses were absolutely on point.
Even from open play, to be fair, he put a couple of nice ones in.
And I think another player who didn't quite make it into our top three but needs a special mention there is Lloyd Jones. I feel like we feel it'd be boring just putting him in every week because it's just you're discussing the same thing over and over. But the way he defended,
Yeah, he's class, isn't he?
Cisse, he was absolutely unbelievable and winning every header again. And just
Yeah,
love him so much.
you run out of sort of descriptions
Yeah.
for him because he's just clockwork, like you said. Every single week he gives it, and he pockets players that are very high quality. Like the strikers you come up against in the Championship are no mugs. Like a lot of them are very high profile, and he does do such a good job of just dominating players.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think there were three players we felt kind of just stood a little bit above the rest. I thought had brilliant performances, and I think let's start with the kind of new boy there, and that's Harry Clark. I don't think one we've discussed particularly as being a standout so far, but I think he has been in every game since he's been there. Maybe you take out the Millwall game because every bugger was Jethel there. Although I still think he was one of probably the better players there. But I thought
unreal. Today was his best game.
The way he harried Sorba Thomas at times, defensively, how good he was. When there was space running into it, the whips on some of the balls getting in. I just think he's a complete package of exactly what we need as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you can look at players, and I can maybe understand why in certain systems, maybe a team don't quite like him or whatever, but for what we need, he's almost just the perfect fit for that.
Yeah, 100%. I think like he brings both sides of the game. Like you said today, like he dominated Sorba Thomas, who again is one of the better wingers in this division. Like he was able to get in front of his man, shepherd the ball out, bully in terms of his physicality, and then on the flip side, when he gets the ball at his feet and he gets a bit of space, he's able to run into it. And again, you mentioned his crossing as well. Like there's a couple he put on in so dangerous, and he's constantly looking for it. So he brings everything we've needed, and he's really grown into that role. And I think today was his 100% his best performance so far.
And he shows passion, he shows want, and that's something I think was lacking with. Look, Bree, we can keep beating with the stick because I think his time at the end, we both definitely
we got fed
went
up
with
with
Bree
him,
out and couldn't stand him at the end. But I think some of the things to say, the bits we were struggling with there is I felt Bree fit the system at points, especially towards the beginning, but we felt he was bringing a pretty one-dimensional. It was balls in that really was there for a lot of the other parts of the game weren't really up to it. And I feel with Clark, he's much more of an all-rounder.
Yeah, 100%.
And for me, he's been probably him and Chambers of the two signed probably the most transformative of how we.
You know the other thing I like about Clark is I think he'd been out of the game for a while because he'd been at Ipswich. I think they loaned him out, hadn't they?
Sheffield United.
Yeah, Sheffield United. But apart from that, like he hadn't played for a long time. I remember like he put out an Instagram post like saying, "Oh, really good to be back out after so long." So you can see he's hungry for it as well, and you can see he really wants to make an impact, and it shows in his game. Like you said, he's given 100%, and long may it continue because he really does fit in well in that side.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, let's move on to the centre of the park, and I think. Look, once again, I think it was very close to being having the conversation about Cody, but I think one who's made it 2 weeks in a row now, and I think he did this towards the beginning of the season. Greg Doherty, I thought absolutely immense again today. I thought harrying with the ball brilliant. Maybe today gave it away a couple of times.
He had a few loose passes, didn't he?
Maybe gave the ball away in a few silly positions. I think it might have been him who gave it away for the one that came across to Raksaki, his second chance. But
it was.
I thought overall just absolutely immense again, throwing his body round. Everything you want from that centre mid role.
Yeah, 100%. And again, like we can criticize like his overall quality in terms of maybe the passes on not always there. Sometimes he gets a little bit flustered when players like press him hard, and he doesn't. He's not the most natural at just
Or
sort
he
of
gets a headache when he runs down the wing. Did you see
Yeah.
his
Oh, yeah,
he went
yeah,
for the
yeah.
left-footed cross?
Yeah.
It reminded me of like
Sweet.
me on me when I was at school or something,
Yeah.
trying to take a left-footed shot. It was
Yeah, he's definitely like limited, but what he does bring you, and we spoke about this in the QPR, and since he's come back in, since we've sort of turned things around a little bit, the voice, the captain armband, like he plays as a captain, like the way he puts himself about, and actually the energy that he brings, and just the general sort of putting your body on the line, like that's what we see from him.
well, and also in comparison to the person who was filling that kind of gap prior was Roy Anderson.
Yeah,
And the one thing Doherty will do, even though you can talk about technical side, and I don't think he's not at the technically low level that is like so ridiculously bad.
no,
I just think he can be a bit frustrating. Sometimes we want someone who will open things up a
Yeah.
little bit more, maybe a little bit more like a Barry Bannon does or something like that. But with Doherty, if there is space, he will drive into it, and he has definitely got that bit more. And I think where we were getting so frustrated is that statue-like kind of turning or
back.
passing it back.
yeah.
And I feel like he brings, as I say, I know we go on this yo-yo with Doherty because we did. We started the season hate it.
I
and
think
then
rightfully so though, because he has been up and down this season.
he
I think-
turned into Pele, didn't he? And then he dropped off again. Yeah.
But I mean that does happen, and players do go through peaks and troughs. But with him, whatever performance you get, he does give it all.
Mm.
And like you said, it shows that he loves the club. Like you can tell.
Mm.
And today was just another example of a performance where he just gave everything, and like got on the end of some really important tackles, blocks, all that stuff. So he brought what he's so good at, and it's really valuable actually.
Yeah, and it's come at the right time. As I say, that Cody and him partnership in that midfield has just been
Well, they're keeping Coventry out of the side.
which is,
Coventry's.
and I don't think it's through injury.
I don't know either. I think
No.
it's just that those two together are actually proven to be big leaders on the pitch.
But as things go, like the realistic side, there will be injuries and there'll be, but knowing that stepping in is Coventry now rather than stepping in is someone else, that shows that kind of
Got depth.
one signing adds that depth, and then as I say, Doherty coming back in, who maybe a few people have started writing off, talks about him in the window getting loaned out. I think someone said Wickham at one point for loaning out.
Yeah, I'm very glad we didn't.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, let's move on to then our final one. And he doesn't come from the starting lineup. He comes from the bench. No surprises. It's not Connor Coventry. TC. I thought he showed his best version of himself, in the words of Nathan Jones.
100%. Like he showed what he can bring, and like actually, I think like there's a lot of people that have argued he's so much more, especially maybe this season where he's getting used to the league. He's a lot more effective coming off the bench because of the threat that he brings in terms of his raw pace. We know how good he is at running at people, and that initial run he went on and obviously forced their keeper into the save showed that he was able to bring that pretty quickly as soon as he got on the pitch. And then the goal that he scored, we've already mentioned about how good his movement was, but it was just the fact that he brought that energy and he brought the desire to really sort of stretch the game, run at them, put himself on the last man, and
when at a time where the Charlton performance was starting to look a little bit limp, a little bit like kind of lack of anything, it's exactly what you need. And as I say, I think we've hit the nail on the head earlier, which is maybe his role this season is much more effective from that position. Not saying it is long term.
No, well,
I really do hope he develops into a player.
That's what we hope, isn't it?
But are we seeing a better version of him now as to what we were at the beginning of the season? Has there been a progress throughout the season? My opinion is yes. I think we are starting to see him do that kind of cut in, beat a few players, take a shot off with a little bit more quality now, and especially as the season's gone on in comparison to what we saw right at the beginning.
It's also confidence. It's like the more he can do that, the more goals he scores, the more confidence he's going to get, the better he's going to play. Like that's just naturally how it goes. But we've been critical of him, and I think rightfully so. There's been moments in the season where we have just been so frustrated with the fact that he's not quite done it. But we're seeing now that he played in his right position. I keep saying it. If we play him in the positions where he's dangerous up the pitch, he is dangerous. And I don't care what anyone says, even if he's raw and his finishing is a bit hit and miss, he is able to get us goals because he will get himself in those positions.
And I think the only time he's effective is when he is given that absolute freedom of running off the wing, running through the middle, whatever it is, and just kind of letting TC be TC. And that will come with frustration. It will come with games where you're kind of ripping your hair out. We'll try our best.
Yeah, we had him in our sort of poor player performance last against QPR. And funny enough, I watched the BBC interview with Nathan Jones, and he said he had a feeling that TC was going to come on and do a number today. And the reason he said that was because he gave him a bit of a rollicking after the QPR game. And he probably told him, when you're coming on, you need to make an impact. And today, is literally exactly what he did. And that's what we want to see.
Yeah.
So to be able to speak in a positive light about him is amazing. And I hope that continues, because we only want to see him thrive. And I think we are starting to see that more and more.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, long may it continue. But as I say, that wraps up the Stoke game. And as I say,
So good.
so badly needed. And I think you scoffed at me when I said we needed 7 points from the 4 games. And we are now 3 games into that run, and we've got the 7 points.
So I honestly, at that point in time, I was like, how? We just got absolutely hammered by Millwall. Do you know what I mean? And we're then looking at games that, on paper, if you'd have told me we get 7 points from Leicester
away, Stoke
QPR.
and QPR. Okay.
They're all solid sides. They're all quite a lot higher up in the well. Leicester are now after their deduction, but they were all teams that were up above us. Teams with a hell of a lot more quality in terms of the money they've spent. But it just shows again that with desire, with the right team out on the pitch and the right performance levels, we can do it. We are more than capable.
And before we move on to the next game, just talking of Leicester, did you see their
that
3-0 up and lost 4-3?
Yeah, there was some banging goals in that game, but they capitulated big time, and I think they're in big trouble, actually.
I think they're in, and as I say, there's a few teams who are in freefall, and there's a few teams who have turned their fortunes around. And I think, in all honesty, in that relegation scrap, you've got one being Norwich, and then I think you've got the 2 that are at the Valley next Tuesday, and that's going into our next game. And that's Charlton against Portsmouth, 7:45 kickoff next Tuesday. And I think they're 2 teams that I had Portsmouth as feeling like they were pretty down and out. I think they've had a very astute January, and you've seen that in results. I mean, they've got a 1-0 win away to Sheffield Wednesday. Couple of draws against Watford away and Southampton at home, a 3-0 win against West Brom, who are one of the free-falling teams, and lost 1-0 to Preston away. It's a tough place
game
to go, isn't it? It's one of those. And when you look at it, relatively similar. I think away from just picking up 1 extra point from us over the last 5, they're a team who have got a couple of games in hand and look like they could start to pull themselves away, especially with, let's say, a few of the players they brought through the door. So I think a game where, obviously, we had horrific events last time as to why this was kind of rearranged, but I think a very different Portsmouth side will be facing at the Valley on Tuesday as what we would have been that day.
That's true. I think they're a team that, like you said, they've got a few games in hand over the others at the moment. And I think that, but the only thing I will say is they're playing Sheffield United on Saturday. We haven't got a game this weekend because the FA Cup. This game actually got brought forward because of that. So we've got a bit more of a rest. So
It's Saturday FA Cup for Pompey.
No, I think they're playing in the championship. So any of the championship sides that have been knocked out and have fixtures, they still play league games. So they're playing. I'm pretty sure it's a championship fixture against Sheffield United. So that's going to be all in. They'll be playing their best side. That gives us more rest time than them. Obviously, they're going to have a 3-day turnaround, which is going to be an impact. So one is how we can utilise that and really go at it from the get-go when we play them at the Valley. It's a home game. And also we're coming off the back of 3 really, really good results and not conceding a goal in 3 games. So we've got our tails up. We have confidence. We now have to just push on and really just keep that moving, because momentum, we know how massive that is.
Well, I think we also hit a pivotal time, which is if results go our way, and realistically probably one of either Leicester or Blackburn don't pick up any points in the next game and we pick up all 3, we'd have then got 10 points above the relegation. And at that stage, I think we're probably 2 or 3 more wins for the rest of the season. Take into account draws, maybe 2 wins, 3 draws out of quite a chunk of games. To probably hit that kind of what we call the magic number. No guarantees, but we've put ourselves in a very healthy position. I think it would be, if we can take all 3 points, at least a point, I think it puts us in incredible stead. But I say 3 points to me would be
massive,
not far off kind of.
Yeah, well, I think if you can hit 49.50, what are we on now?
We're 39 currently. Takes up to 42.
Yeah, so 3 more wins. 3 more wins.
We're thereabouts.
That's pretty much there. So, and that's what, 15 games left. Yeah. So You would
Sheffield Wednesday as well being one.
I mean, you would
You
like.
can clip that at the end of the season.
End of the season. This is going to come back to all.
Yeah.
No, you'd like to think that we've got more than enough, and like we are showing now again, beating the likes of Leicester, Stoke, we have got more than enough to beat teams that are much on paper, much
Can
more.
we just say as well, if we beat Pompey, if we do,
yeah,
it'll be our game in hand, and we'd be 1 point behind Stoke.
yeah, and also like
the team that we were
well,
talking when they battered us at their place, we were talking about them being a top 2 contender. Now that maybe speaks as much volumes for their drop off.
No, they have fallen off big time.
Falling off big time. But you also look at it, as I say,
the playoffs. I mean, I'm not going into that conversation.
We're 8 points off the playoffs.
No, that's what I mean. Like, but I'm not. We're not going down that avenue.
I believe
we're not going down that avenue, but that is how tight the league is, and like it only takes a momentum shift of a few wins or a few losses, and you start dropping or climbing, and that's how the league goes.
Luckily, we're a level-headed podcast.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're not silly here.
2 more wins. But yeah, no. So I think it'll be a very interesting game, but we've definitely given ourselves a little bit more breathing room, and I think we've discussed as well. After that horrific run of form, it felt like we were going into every game in this incredible pressure cooker, and I feel like we're now performing better. We picked up the points to give us that little bit of wiggle room in regards to being above the relegation. Yeah. Nowhere near job done, but we've given ourselves an incredible platform.
Yeah.
But then going into the next game, going into that Portsmouth game, that could have been pressure cooker central of kind of a real relegation 6 points. Now it's still incredibly important, but I think going into a game more relaxed will also in turn help us massively.
Yeah, 100%. If you're in a game where the fans are absolutely, it's a pressure cooker. Any little slip and you're in big trouble. You know what I mean? Like you go 1-0 down and all of a sudden, and that's actually the boat that sort of Leicester are in at the moment, especially after last night's result. So the boos after the final whistle, and they're going to be on edge every game now because there's just spiraling out of control, and that's momentum. Is like I said, West Brom will be in that boat as well. All these teams that are big level teams, the fans expect a lot. And they're losing week in and week out. All of a sudden we've turned our fortunes around, and fans are going into the game optimistic. And it only takes a few games for that to swing.
But it's also the atmosphere around the stadium, for example. You look at it in that rotten run of form. It was starting to. I wouldn't say we ever got near toxic, but it was definitely teetering that direction.
Yeah.
It was a.
Well, they were strong, not a million miles ago, like 4 or 5 games ago. Probably at the end of the Millwall game, we were talking. Is it Jones? Is he on thin ice here? All of a sudden, we're back to like, okay, he's doing a really good job.
He's a great guy.
We love him.
Well, there we go. So we will quickly bring up the league table now. So we've got Charlton sitting in 18th now. I think we've dropped down a place, even though we won, because all the way other results are gone. But the more important one is we are 7 points above the drop with a game in hand. So yeah, no, I think it's a much healthier looking table than it had been getting to, because I think there was 1 point.
With 3 points, weren't we, above?
There was 1 point where I can't remember what game it was, but I think we picked up the win towards the end. But if we hadn't have won it, I think it might have even been the Sheffield United game. The way the results went that day, it would have been about a 2 point between us being in and around. So yeah, definitely looking more healthy.
Yeah, no, we're looking much better, and like we just got to build on it now. Like if we can just keep building, and the points here and there are great, but the 3 points are massive now. Like, and we've just seen like the Leicester and obviously today's Stoke game. The 3 points you're able to get in those sort of games are massive. Like,
but as we were before, we've got to make sure that we take advantage of our momentum. And really do still getting to that kind of magic point as early as possible, because it can quickly change. Albeit, I'm feeling very confident again about things.
And I'll tell you what, when we do hit that, because we are going to hit that magic number. How nice will that feel? Just knowing that we're there, like we're all right, and actually hopefully we'll have a few games left, and we'll really be able to sort of open up and see what
I've got a bottle of Moe in the fridge.
we'll pop it.
We'll pop in for the episode. Yeah. But there we go. So, well, look, thank you very much for watching. As I say, we'll be back for next Tuesday's game against Pompey. It's a huge game. Hopefully, will be another one where we can have a positive chat about things. As I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.